Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel. I promised a more personal video today and I'm going to keep my promise. And it's about my autism and how it affects my hobbies and my wargaming in particular. Now, here's the first thing. I've been into wargaming for 30 years. I've been into wargaming since Warhammer 2nd edition. I really got into it in 3rd edition. I actually played it a little bit prior to 2nd edition with Tyrannid Attack. Back in 1st edition, that was my first time I played it. I can still remember that game. And so, I'm kind of trying to explain how things work for my brain. And I got to sort of put it this way. I say I'm broken, and I will constantly say I'm broken, because my brain doesn't work like it should do. I know this, and please don't find sympathy for me. I'm accepting of this. I own my autism. I own it. It's mine. Okay? And when I stopped doing Warhammer and Games Workshop, it was very difficult for me. It was incredibly difficult for me, because when I have to change, or I change something, including anything down to a faction or even a HQ choice, I have to go through this walk in my head to get me to that other thing that I might enjoy. I have to sort of logically give myself a reason why I'd enjoy it. And my walks can be absolutely strange. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing. Just weird in general. And I don't find excuses for a change. I don't go like, oh, I don't like this because, price. It's got to be something far more objective. Something more personal to myself. Now, when I stop, I'm not doing any more Warhammer videos, well, unless it's important in my opinion, but I am going to have to start buying Warhammer again, now especially Horus Heresy, because there was a condition that would have to be met for me to do it. And again, this is kind of part of this walking part, which I've got to talk about, and that condition is my child. If they chose to do a Warhammer game, and believe me, I tried to get them away from Warhammer. Well, any other games. I tried to get them into Warlords Exodus, into Kings of War, but no, they chose Warhammer and they chose Space Wolves. So we settled on Horus Heresy, because tanks. Yeah, they want to do a Space Wolf army full of tanks. It's their army, they can do what they want. So that means I've got to do Horus Heresy now, so they have someone to play with, and paint with, and build with, and all that cool stuff, alright? But here's where the problem comes in. I haven't touched, for personal reasons, not professional, Games Workshop game model for, 6 months now? 7 months? So getting back into it, for my child, was very difficult. It was difficult because nothing interested me. I tried my very best. I was looking at all the Liber Astartes books, all the Liber Electricus books, basically the Mechanicum, Emperor, the campaign books that are out, except March and Civil War, the rulebook, everything, novels, etc. All my old stuff I was looking at, and I couldn't find a reason to get me into the Horus Heresy. I couldn't find a walk. I call it a walk because it's pretty much that. For me to change game system, for me to change faction, for me to change almost anything in my life, I have to go through this logical walk to get there. Which is why I tend to find it hard to buy new books or try new subjects or anything like that. I find it so difficult because I've got to do this very, very hard and sometimes long logical steps to get me to this. An example of this would be why I did the Watchers after the Warrior Nations. And it's going to sound weird. So basically, the Warrior Nations and the Watchers are very, very sparsely connected, if at all, in the lore of the Warlords Exodus. And my basic walk was, the Watchers are in the Superstition Mountains. The Superstition Mountains have some sort of religious significance to the Watchers, to the Warrior Nations, and that's why. So basically, Warrior Nations Superstition Mountains, the Watchers. I actually literally have to put the Superstition Mountains in there. Even for it to work for me. You know? And Reunion wasn't so hard, because Reunion was literally, because I was doing 40k at the time, it has Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla is in power armor, that looks like a space marine. Voila. Okay? So Reunion wasn't too hard. And I can go to do Lawman now, because I do Reunion. The Infernal Affairs posse is a Union / Lawman posse. So I can do Lawman because I have a Lawman posse already, which can be attached to my Union posse. And this is how a lot of my brain works. And at times it can be absolutely frustrating. So when I stopped doing Games Workshop for personal reasons, my daughter wasn't interested, didn't want to do anything about it, and that's fine, so I could just give it up. So now she wants to do something about it, I got to get back into it. But because there was nothing I could walk to from Games Workshop, from Warhammer, to a different game that I wasn't already doing, it was very difficult for me to try something else. Now, what got me to Conquest, again, was literally because it was a Warhammer walk. It sounds so weird for me to say this, but again, it was a Warhammer walk, and it had nothing to do with Age of Sigmar or Fantasy Battles. It was 40k. And basically it was from the Eldar to the Old Spires. The Old Spires are basically space elves from space. They, just like the Eldar, they're a dying race, just like the Eldar. So because a lot of their lore was very similar to the Eldar, it was an easier walk for me to do the Old Spire. Or the Spires, I should say, not the Old Spire, the Spires. And the Old Dominion was, again, related to Space Marines. They're basically undead Romans. You got the Ultramarines. You see? I have to make these connections before I can try anything else. And it includes bands, music, anything, even films. People have suggested, have you seen this film? Yeah. Oh, no. You'll like it if you like this. Okay. I like that film. It doesn't mean I'm going to like this one. It's literally my first thought in my head. I might like the film they mention, but doesn't mean I'm going to like the film. I actually have to do a walk between the film I like to the film they mentioned. Again, this is absolutely exhausting to have to do this every single day. Even with food, it's so hard that I have to do this. And this is just trying to get... This is just me. This isn't covering all autistic people or everyone on the spectrum. This is how I go through it and how I have to go through everything. When I buy a new game, when I buy a new model, when I buy new books, I literally have to do this logical steps walk every time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It wasn't meant to be whiny or anything like that, just very clear on basically how my autism affects my wargaming and my hobbies. And I hope you found it interesting. I kind of found it interesting to get this all out. And I'll see you on the next one. And thank you. If you want to save money on your wargaming, of course, there is Whalen Games down below. As always, with up to 20% off and free delivery after £20. There is also Forbidden Planet with comics, DVDs, mangas, etc. And there is my merchandise, my comics, Skyforge, never get Skyforge, a good friend of mine, and finally Patreon because business. Bye bye.